room's so messy and I can't hide it. So I almost forgot I was gonna film something today, and then I remembered, so I decided to pop over and set up the camera and just like do another little ramble. It's a beautiful day down here in the South during this lockdown season that's still going on. It's really, really pretty. So I wanted to film it outside, but we have got some really strong winds right now, so it would not have worked. Anyway, so today I'm going to try to do just kind of like an unfiltered, minimal editing kind of talk. I don't think I can do it for 10 minutes, but who knows, we'll see. So I wanted to talk about something that I like kind of touched on when I made my video about me being on a guest on the last Exit radio show, which is like metal focused or underground music, underground extreme music in general. So, and one of the things I said was like, it kind of, I felt reconnected with the underground, which is something that I've kind of fallen away from recently, or in recent years, really. So I wanted to talk about like, what or why I have disconnected from the underground. And just for some disambiguation here of the term, by underground I mean, I'm trying to make more light over here. Okay, so by underground, I guess like technically all metal as we know it is underground, or not all metal, but most metal is underground. But I mean like the more obscure bands, like I'm not seeking them out anymore. I'm not really like listening to more of the hidden or local small time bands. So when I say I don't listen to underground stuff anymore, I mean like I'm sticking to like the bigger names. I'm sticking to stuff like, I don't know, today I've been listening to Celtic Frost, and then I look at my vest, and those are all big names. You know, we have like Goat Whore, Halloween, King Diamond, like big stuff. Oh, and like Belphegor, Dark Funeral, the bigger names. And I've been trying to get into like the reasons for that. So this situation popped into my mind when I got a smartphone, which feels like it was just the other day, but I guess it was like, I don't know, 7 years ago. But when I first got a smartphone, my friend recommended the app Songkick, and that's like an app where you can track concerts for whatever artists you want to list on there. So I decided to like go through my music library and put all those artists into Songkick so I can just like track everything that I enjoy listening to. And I started to realize that a lot of the bands on there don't exist anymore. And it's weird. Okay, this is always like hard for me to accept the ephemeral nature of pretty much all media, right? But when I got into metal, it was probably like 2003. And I got a huge collection. It was like a compilation of Century Media, Olympic, and Nuclear Blast. And so I just basically welcomed all of those bands with open arms. It was like 150 different songs from a lot of different artists. And I didn't realize that was just like, what is it in accounting where it just shows like a snapshot of what's happening at that moment? Is that a balance sheet? It's been too long since I took accounting. But anyway, I realize now that was just like a moment in time of like, those are the bands right now. But those weren't the bands that were gonna have a lasting impact, if that makes sense. So, you know, I'd really like this band or this band, or like, okay, one that pops into my mind, I think was called Mercury Tide. I was like, Mercury Tide, this is really awesome. And like, after going through Songkick, and deciding to look into those bands. Where are they now? A lot of them had only put out one album, and it was that album from about the 2003 time period, and they didn't take off. And also looking through my old metal magazines recently, because I was looking at the like classified pen pal ads for fun, there's a lot of ads for bands that were starting out, like out of their garage in Wisconsin or something. And I was just looking at all those bands and thinking, like, they probably never got beyond that stage. And there's something really lonely about that. And, like, so if you're listening to underground music, they may not ever put out more than a couple demos. They may not ever tour. They may not play anything beyond a couple local shows or something. And there's not activity, you know, there's nothing, and there's not like other fans all the time, and there's just something so lonely, and like it's like a dead end street. And it's, on the other hand, it's really fun to follow someone like King Diamond, who's been making music for 30-40 years, and you know, getting to know other fans, having fellowship with other fans, and getting to go to shows over and over, and wearing official merch and stuff. So it is like, when a band gets to a certain level on the underground scale, my cat's been very distracting. When a band gets to a certain level, it becomes a little bit more enjoyable. Like, I don't know, like, there's something so lonely. Okay, so let's say that I bought this Mercury Tide album, but no, you don't know where they are now. They didn't continue. They're not going to tour. There's no merch. There's no other fans that you know of. There's just something so lonely about that. And I'm not saying that, like, the external and material factors are what makes or breaks listenability, but it's just, I don't know. It was sad to realize that everything that I thought was so significant in that 2003 time period, like, actually wasn't. Now, that's not to say a lot of those bands on that original compilation aren't extremely significant and still active and all that, but it's just kind of sad when things don't ever even get off the ground. And I guess nowadays I kind of want bands I can count on, if that makes sense. Like bands that I know aren't going to let me down. Like, I know that they're going to keep going. I know I'm going to be able to see them, and I know they're going to put out new albums and all of that. But anyway, being on Last Exit and like kind of reorienting myself with this idea of underground music and new bands and bands starting out and local scenes and just all of that, it kind of renewed my appreciation for it, because maybe I've been lazy. Maybe I've been lazy and just like listening to the greats and just sticking to the greats lately. But there's something so bittersweet about going from the mid 2000s and listening to something underground, and I guess thinking that it's going to grow and thinking that it's going to continue, and it just doesn't. And that doesn't mean you can't, go listen to that one album or that one demo they put out or whatever, but I don't know. There's like a formula that is required for a band to be sustained. Okay, so like in high school, I really liked Vehemence. I don't know if they'd be considered underground, but because they were like made it on Headbangers Ball and everything. But as far as I remember, they only pretty much played shows in Arizona because that's where they were from. And they put out 2 albums, but they just they had lives to live, right? So they didn't keep up with it. And then, of course, I think it was like 2015. Was it that long already? They came together and just put out one more album. But it wasn't, it was just a one-time thing because they all have like families and stuff. And they put out one more. They're like, here you go. But it's sad that there's not this like reciprocation, like this interaction. Like I'll always just kind of be sad when I look at my Vehemence patch. Like, what could they have been? Not, of course, not saying that what they did was for nothing. I still listen to them all the time, but maybe this whole spiel is about underground music that never took off. And so I was dropped into the metal world in like 2003, and I just like latched on to all these bands, and some bands came with me as, 17 years have passed. 17? That's not right. How old am I? Anyway, as however many years have passed, some bands they're still here, and then some just fell out. And you don't even realize it till you're like, hey, whatever happened to them? And you turn around and realize, like, they are no more. And I guess this kind of goes hand in hand with my video I made about, like, do you keep up? Do you keep up with current metal? Do you keep up with what's new and all that? And it is hard to keep up, and it's harder and harder to keep up with each passing year. But the underground is kind of hard, kind of lonely, and unpredictable. So that's probably why I haven't been listening to anything very obscure lately. And it's kind of sad. Like, I kind of feel like that used to be one of the most appealing things to me, is like finding a band, especially on Myspace. Like, I would find these bands, these obscure, like, hometown metal bands on Myspace, and just, like, I would feel special that I was listening to that and nobody else knew what it was. And, like, it was kind of like a secret. And for some reason, now as an adult, like, I don't listen to the secret stuff anymore. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe because it's just easier to stick with the bands that have always been around. And also in that video, I talked about how, like, some of the newer stuff I don't really like. But you know what? Why don't you tell me a good underground band that I can check out? What's, like, the most obscure thing you're listening to right now? Let me know. I need to explore a little bit. I do miss Myspace. Myspace is how I found Vehemence. Because they were, like, adding people. Like, becoming friends with people that they thought might like their music. So that's how I found them, as Myspace friends. And I do kind of miss that aspect. But, yeah, lately I've just been, like, kind of Googling around, like, hey, what happened to that band? And they ended up, like, breaking up in 2007 or something. And I don't know, that makes me sad. I also get sad when businesses close down, even though, like, it has nothing to do with me, right? Anyway, so that's all I wanted to talk about. Just, like, this drifting away from the underground and trying to explore why. And I don't know, there's a lot going on in the media world, and the underground is even more accessible now. Like, the underground bands can just distribute their music out really easily. And in that way, it's even more disorienting, because how do you know what to listen to, where to go? And word of mouth. Help me out with word of mouth. Tell me something I should listen to, or else I'm just gonna keep listening to my Celtic Frost and Death and Morbid Angel, right? Okay, that's all I wanted to say this time, so see you later.